Hi there. Um, Today I'm going to talk to you about a complicated feature of TBTA. Now, if you're thinking, oh man, the things I've been learning are way too complicated already, maybe this isn't a good lesson for you. But for those of you who've really gotten to know the system and want to know about this, this could be a useful lesson. So, if you find this way too complicated, then just put it aside and go to something else. Um, what I'm going to talk about today is about the complex rules. Now, here I've used what we call an explication. Now, we have a document, explications.x, and with a bunch of explications that we've used, and the rules in our that we use, the complex rules may or may not be in here. They should be, uh, but in this case, I did add it. I can't get rid of this thing. Where is that? Oh, that. Okay. Okay. So adjectives, pregnant. That's what I'm going to look at. Okay. So I have an explication for pregnant woman, woman who has a baby inside that woman's body or womb. And then X is or gets pregnant to have or get a baby inside one's body or womb. Now, why don't we just use pregnant? Well, the reason for that is because if we look at the Longman defining vocabulary, pregnant is not in there. It seems like a very useful word, like we might want to have it, but it's not in there. And if we go to the ontology, so I go to ontology and lexicon, ontology, adjectives is the third choice. Then I pull down the letter here to go to P's. Pregnant. Okay, it's magenta. Now the magenta color means that it's a complex term. The non-complex terms are yellow or cream colored, and those we can use freely. But with the complex terms, uh, we have a choice of ways we can express the complex terms, and we should not just use it in the way we use the other words. Okay, one of the ways that we can use a complex word is by pairing it with a simpler word. So I did that in this first sentence here. I paired womb with body. Okay, so in other words, if I don't have the word womb available in the language I'm working in, then it will just use body. And you get that choice by clicking on the Complex Concepts button. It's the first item in the third row of buttons down at the bottom. And I think I've talked about that another time. But today I'm going to talk about rules. So I want it to come out like it does in the generation down here. You see, Eve became pregnant. But I didn't write that. I used the explication. So in this sentence, I wrote, Eve got a baby inside the body of Eve. So you can see that in the phase two down here. Eve, get, it's in the discourse for our ordinary past tense, got a baby, first mentioned baby. And then this is a not applicable semantic rule. It's not an argument of get. It's an extra prepositional phrase inside the body, and it's a body part of Eve. Okay, but if I generate, it came out Eve became pregnant. So how did it do that? So we're going to try to see how that worked. So I'm going to click on generator, lexicon and grammar development. And now you see in this section on the right, you see this section transfer grammar. And I'm going to expand this section, complex concept insertion rule and library rules. So there's a little plus sign there, and I'm going to click on that, or just to the lower right of that. And I put this in rules copied from Richard with Richard's stories. I'm going to expand that by clicking on the plus. Okay, so become pregnant is so they're going to get a baby inside X's body or womb. I'm going to double click on that. And let's look at this. So this rule definition, it's a verb. So the syntactic category is a verb. And the rule's name is become pregnant is get a baby inside one's body or womb. Okay, and when we look at this, we see some of the words have parentheses and some don't. If it has parentheses, it's an example. So it means that this rule could work for a different noun here other than Eve. And if you hover the mouse over Eve, there's a little pop-up box that says example only. But for this rule, I want to use the specific word get, baby. And if you hover over the features, I said that it should be first mention, get a baby. So if you want it to be first mention because you might want to say Mary got Jesus inside her womb. So you're saying the specific person Jesus. So you don't want that to become just Mary became pregnant. Now, we might generalize the rule to allow for this to become something other than baby, to say pregnant with Jesus, but that would be even more complicated than what we're doing today. So here I just use first mention, a baby, inside womb. But notice that if I hover over womb, the pop-up says womb or body. So I defined this rule so it works for womb or body. And then there's an embedded noun phrase with body part of Eve. Now, under Eve, there's a little index I, and that's indicating that this noun is the same one as this one. So Eve became pregnant in the womb of her, so it has the same index I. Now down at the bottom it shows what happens. So you see that some of the things that were up in the upper part are marked as deleted. So get is marked as deleted, baby is marked as deleted. Inside the womb is marked as deleted. And then other things are marked as inserted. So we've inserted become, and we've inserted an adjective phrase with pregnant. And then you see something else, these features here. These features are copied over from get. So suppose you want to say Eve got a baby, then you want it to become Eve became pregnant using the past form of become. But if you said Eve gets a baby with the present tense, then you would want it to become Eve becomes pregnant. So it's going to get the features for become from get over here. I copied those. Now to show you how I form this rule, I'm going to turn off this rule. Now you see here there's a status little checkbox to the left of all these buttons, main clause, noun phrase. So right here, I'm going to uncheck it, mark it OK. And note that the phase 2 says become pregnant. but whoa, it magically switched back to get baby inside the womb of Eve. So this rule is getting implemented before we click on generate here in this generate screen. So suppose I click on generate now and we'll see what happens. Okay, here it is. Eve got a baby inside her womb and gave birth to a boy named Cain. So you can understand that. It's totally understandable, but it's not the way we would say it normally. We would say Eve got pregnant. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to, so I turned off the rule that I had. Now I'm going to show you how I can make a new rule. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to get. So you pick the word that seems to be most related to the explication, and I'm going to choose that to be get. And I'm put the mouse over get and do a right click of my mouse. And then I go down and uh-oh. It's not giving me that option. I'm not sure what's going on there. Okay, so I wasn't sure what was going on there, but I noticed that initialize could be clicked. So I clicked on initialize, and now it's letting me get to this option that I wanted. Okay, so apparently after I generated, because I hadn't saved it, maybe it wasn't going to let me build a rule here. So now I'm going to go to get and do a right click of my mouse, and I go down, and now it gives me this option, build input structure for transfer rule. So I'm going to click on that. Okay, now what we do is we choose the words for the rule. So I'm going to click on some words that I need in this rule. First of all, I'm going to click on get. Okay, note it's marked now in magenta, and it marked the verb phrase also. So when you click an item in a phrase, it knows that you need the whole phrase, so it selects the phrase as well. Now for Eve, I don't want Eve specifically. I want an example. She's just an example. Instead of clicking on the word Eve, the source word at the top, I click on the middle row, just below Eve. So now it clicked that, but it didn't click on the word Eve. So it's marking that Eve is, it has a noun there, but it's not necessarily Eve. Okay, then I want baby. Got a baby. I want inside. Womb is an option, so I'm going to click on womb, but I'll show you how to add body. Then I want body part. And now for Eve, again, I don't want Eve specifically. That's an example, so I'm going to click on the second row. Okay, now I go over here, and in the transfer grammar where it says rules copied from Richard, I'm going to double click on that. And it brings up a rule. Okay, so since I clicked on the verb first, get, it marked it as syntactic category verb. You know, actually, probably this is better indicated as an adjective for pregnant. So I'm going to change that. Okay, so I want and actually, okay, so I'm going to put become pregnant. Maybe I will make it a verb. I'm not sure what's better there. Anyway, it won't affect how it works. Okay, so become pregnant is X got a baby inside X's body/womb. Okay, now I'm going to need to edit the input structure. So here it's got output structure. It's ready for you to edit the output, but I'm going to have to edit the input. So I'm going to click on that. Warning, if you edit this, modifications will have to be re-entered. Well, I haven't modified anything in the output structure, so that's okay. There are some changes that you can make without going to input. Okay, so for womb, I want that to include the possibility of body. So I'm going to click on the Add Word button up here. And now it lets me select a word. I'm going to click on B, gets me to the B's. Body. Okay, so I added body. Now if you hover over womb, it shows womb and body. Okay, I wanted baby to be first mentioned specifically, so I'm going to click on the features button up here in the upper right, then click on baby. So you'd see it doesn't show any features here yet. That's because this rule could work for any of these features, but I'm going to say that it has to be first mentioned. So I'm going to click on that, click OK. Okay, then remember, I want Eve to be the same person. She's just an example here. So where is that? Okay, in the buttons, you see the first column, the third item says set nominal indices. So I'm going to click on that. Then I'm going to click on Eve. It says no index right now. Click on the pull down menu and I'm going to click on I. Okay, then I'm going to do the same over here. Okay, so now I have somebody gets a baby inside womb or body of that person. Now I'm going to click on output structure. Okay, now I click delete button. That's in the section of buttons, the right column, the third item, delete. I'm going to delete the whole verb phrase with get. I could click on get, but to delete everything in that verb phrase, it's better to click on the verb phrase boundary. So I click on that. Got I can do this differently. So let's not delete the verb phrase. So I'm going to click again on the verb phrase. So I undeleted that. I'm just going to delete get. Okay, but I am going to delete all the other phrases. So I'm going to click on the left noun phrase boundary for baby and the left noun phrase baby for noun phrase boundary for inside the womb. And notice it deletes everything in that noun phrase, including the inner noun phrase, if I click on the phrase. So I didn't delete the verb phrase, and that's because I realized that I could insert my new verb inside that phrase. So for the buttons up here in the fourth column, the first one is insert word. Click on that. Now I'm going to click here in between the verb phrase boundary and get. For this one, I think you can click in between things. In the analyzer window, usually you click on something and then it will add it before that. And I'm going to use it as a source term because I have a source term for pregnant. Sometimes you use target terms. And I'm going to click on the pull down here and get a verb. Then I'm going to click on the down arrow here. I'm going to press B, that gets me to the B's, and scroll down, and I want become predicative. So predicative is where you're saying it like became white, has some characteristic. So this is what we use with an adjective. Click OK. So now I have become inserted here in the rule. Now I don't have an adjective phrase, so I'm going to have to add that. So I'm going to, there's adjective phrase button is in the third column of buttons. Click on that. I'm going to click in between these two phrases and it put the left boundary, and then I click on it again to make the right boundary. So now I have an adjective phrase. Now for become adjective phrase, there are two kinds of adjective phrases, and it automatically made it attributive, but here it should be predicative. When we say something is something, that's using the predicate form of the adjective. The attributive form is like a white coat, when white describes coat. When you say something is white, then you're using the predicate. So I'm going to click on features, click on that adjective phrase boundary. Do you want to set up a table? No, I don't want to do anything complicated. Okay, so now I check in usage, I check the predicative feature. Click OK. So now I've got it as a predicate adjective phrase. And now I want to insert a word, so I click on the insert word button. Click in the middle of this adjective phrase. Again, I'll use a source term because I have a source term for pregnant. I click on adjectives for semantic category. Now I click on the pull down menu. Now I'm going to press P, get to the P's, scroll down, and there's pregnant. So I'm going to click on pregnant, click OK. So now I have Eve become pregnant, but I want to copy the features of get to become. So if it was got pregnant, then I want it to became pregnant, or if it was get pregnant, I want it to become pregnant. So for that, I use the copy features button. So in the buttons up at the right, in the next to the last column of buttons, the second one is copy features. I click on get. Now I choose which ones to use. Now, if you get into using these rules, you're going to have to know which ones to copy. And there's a document I have called Todd Notes, which I can give to you, which has the information about that. But one kind of rule of thumb is anything that having to do with the target language we don't want to choose because we want this to work for all languages. I'm going to click time, aspect, mood, reflexivity, and polarity, and I'm not going to click adjective degree because that has to do with target languages also, which you'd have to find this out from the Todd Notes file. So now I click OK. And now I click the word that I want to copy to, which is become. Okay, so I got the features from get, and then I transferred them to become. Time, aspect, mood, reflexivity, and polarity. Okay, so now I think I have the rule right. I'm going to click on OK. Admittedly, these rules are complex. So this is not a simple feature. So I have a new rule. Become pregnant equals X got baby inside X's womb. If I double click on that, I bring up the rule again, and I just wanted to check its status is on. So now this rule is on. And look here. Before I even clicked on generate, it's got pregnant here, Eve, become. So this rule gets applied even before I click on the generate button. So now if I click on generate, So this would work in the analyzer window also if you click on the generate. Assuming you got the rule set up right and it's on, status is on. Okay, Eve became pregnant and gave birth to a boy named Cain. So you see how that worked. Okay, so that's how we do complex rules. If you're not going to be actually using these, at least maybe you'll understand them better, how they work. And if you are getting into the advanced aspects of the program and we'll use this rule, this is an intro to how you set up such a rule. If I want to save this, I click on Save Verse, and